guess everybody's pretty well seated now. My name is Sadhu Bini, and I've been given the pleasant task by my friends to welcome everybody. And as expected, there are a lot of very large number of very distinguished people here today, both from the Punjabi and from the larger community. And we're very pleased from our Writers Forum to have this opportunity of having this interaction with a number of these people. I guess it's inappropriate to name everybody in a way. It would take too much time, and the idea of this meeting is to start something, to start some kind of process where we can get to know each other in a way that will become a part of our different separate literary community. And so we're hoping, and I think it will work in the future, that we will eventually know each other. So we won't need this introduction of names and stuff. And that is the wish of Writers Forum. And that is why we've organized this one session, especially during the 3-day conference that we are having, where we can meet other people who are active in the same sphere of things as we are ourselves. And for that matter, for that purpose, we've organized this. And I again welcome all of you from the forum. And what we will be doing in the next hour or so, I guess, will be trying to get to know each other. That's the best way to put it. We don't have any specific speakers for this, but we do have some people who are going to start, I guess, a few things. But everybody is welcome to express themselves, and that's what we wish to see. People from other communities giving us some ideas how we are perceived out there. We know how we are perceived in the media. We see that every day. We read that every day. But we want to know if there's anything else, any other kind of perception about us out there, and how we can, with the help of you, if possible, change that or put a dent into that kind of perception. I'll call Ajmer Rode. He will conduct the rest of the program. Ajmer.
Thank you, Sadhu. Welcome again. It's really a great occasion for us today to have all the distinguished people here. Some writers who were very much interested to come had expressed interest, but due to some reason they couldn't come. They have sent their messages to us, and I think before we start any further, we would like to recognize them just at the start. So Mr. Gurcharan Rampuri would read these messages before we... Gurcharan?
Thank you, Ajmer. Friends, here are a few messages from the writers who couldn't be here with you. The first one is from poet Andy Schreider. We invited him and he was almost certain to be here, but something happened, and so he has written, "Dear members of the Punjabi Writers Forum and participants of the Punjabi Literary Conference, as this letter is being read to you, I am lamentably in Campbell River on Vancouver Island, unable to attend your literary conference. This is depressing, as I very much wanted to join you in such an exciting venture. I am an enthusiastic and wholehearted supporter of the groups such as yours, which will keep alive the cultural treasures of your former homeland, while at the same time making them available to the rest of us here in Canada. The interest you have taken in the English language works of other Canadian writers and the translations of your own people's works, which are becoming increasingly available now, will further the immediate cause of harmonious relations amongst us here and the greater cause of literature throughout the world. The Punjabi Literary Conference is thus setting us all an example which other cultural groups would do well to emulate. I know it will be a success, and I congratulate you on it. Warmest regards, Andy Schreiber. The next message is from Carolyn Zanello, the poetess. She writes, in the Canadian Punjabi Literary Conference, Vancouver, thank you for an invitation to participate in your literary conference scheduled for August 8th and 9th. I regret that I have prior commitments for the Saturday time that you have allowed for readings. I wish you great success in this first Canadian Punjabi Literary Conference and hope that the conference is well attended. I will be seeing you on the day before the conference. And then the third letter is from Mr. Honorable Ian Waddell, Member of Parliament. And he says, Dear Sir, I'm very pleased to have assisted you with your grant for this weekend's conference, but I regret that I cannot attend in person. It's very important, especially at this time, that Canadians see and understand that we have a rich and growing body of Canadian Punjabi culture, literature, and that we have active writers and poets here in Canada. I wish you well in your conference, and I look forward to enjoying some of your work in the near future. Yours sincerely, Ian Waddell, MP, Vancouver, Kingsway. There's another message from the Punjabi Sahit Sabha, the Punjabi Writers Association from Yuba City, America, and they have sent us warmest wishes at this occasion. Thank you very much.
There's another message from Writers Union of Canada. As I understand, they are having their most important meeting at this time, most important meeting of the year. So Audrey Thomas was supposed to come here, but she couldn't come due to that reason. However, we have George McWhirter. I think he's representing also the union, and he has the message from them. I would like if you would read it yourself, George.
Okay. The writers from Victoria and all of BC are having a meeting right at this moment. It's been going since about 1:30. And George Parley, who is the local representative, George Parley, who is the local representative of the Writers' Union, has very kindly put together a personal letter to Eisner and a letter to all of you regarding the Writers' Union of Canada and some recent talks and developments within the union at their last annual general meeting that are pertinent to this particular group of Punjabi writers, but also pertinent to all ethnic groups in the country. I start by reading that letter. Again, it's from George Carley, who is the local representative of the Writers' Union of Canada. And this will be later circulated, I presume, to everybody in attendance, but I'll read it. It's to Ajmer Singh, Punjabi Writers Forum. Dear members of the Punjabi Writers Forum and participants of the Punjabi Literary Conference, on behalf of the members of the British Columbia Yukon branch of the Writers' Union of Canada, I would like to extend our congratulations and support for the endeavours you are making as writers in Canada and in your community. I am grateful for your invitation to attend the literary conference, but regret that I am unable to accept because our summer regional meeting is unfortunately scheduled for the same date and time. Since one of our distinguished guests, that's me, George McWhirter, is a member of the Writers' Union, I have asked him to represent us. As you no doubt realise, the Writers' Union of Canada is a dynamic organisation of professional book writers dedicated to the enhancement of the writer's material and cultural position in the country. It is an organisation intended to serve the interests of all Canadian writers. The membership of the Union has recently recognised that the ethnic racial minorities of Canada are not well represented amongst us. In this sense, your interest in our organisation is well timed. It has, however, always been the case that membership in the Union is open to any author who meets the following simple criteria. 1, is a Canadian citizen or landed immigrant. 2, author of a book published by a trade publisher within the last 7 years, or author of such a book still in print. The intent of these criteria is to limit membership in the Union to Canadian authors of books intended for a general audience. Given these basic criteria, and given its orientation to the needs of writers who are attempting to make a living from their work, the Union welcomes application for membership from any Canadian book writer. Certainly, we would be honoured to have amongst our membership writers from the rich Punjabi heritage working in Canada. Please feel free to contact us at any time about the Writers' Union of Canada's policies and activities. I wish you the very best during the exciting weekend of your literary conference, and wish that I could be with you in person as well as in spirit. Perhaps if I could reread some of the points that George makes in the letter to make it clearer to you. We were discussing it prior to my coming to the meeting, and George wanted to let you know that in the discussions at the Union, one of the items that has been under discussion is the matter of whether the book needs to be in English or whether it is a factor that the book is in another unofficial language. Apparently, the pure wording of the membership criteria, it does not indicate language. As it stands at this point, and it's still being clarified, as it stands in simple rules, that any book published by a trade publisher, and that doesn't just mean an established trade publisher, a recognized trade publisher, it doesn't just mean any publisher in Canada, but any publisher within the world who is a recognized trade publisher publishing a Canadian author who is either a landed immigrant or a Canadian citizen, that is recognized as a trade publisher according to the wording of the membership rules for the Writers' Union. That gives quite a scope to things. In terms of practicality, the feeling is that for the very thing that you want in terms of writers within Canada and within it, the access and the availability to a wider readership in English is probably very important to you. And Also, the capacity to function once one is a member of the union in English, to comfortably attend meetings, to get into the nitty-gritty of the organizational items, again, the legal items, and all of those things which finally end up as cultural support, individual support in terms of money, copyright, etc. All of those technical things, to be comfortable with those in English is very important for those members attending the meetings, because then you can actually become effective. That is the practical side of it. So the matter of encouraging you to join the union and to have your support as members is very important to the Writers' Union of Canada. And I suppose I should say that also I'm not a Canadian citizen, an immigrant, and I would like to see everyone who puts pen to paper well and is published by a good publisher. I'd like to see every one of them play their part and have some input into the Writers' Union of Canada. So I'm also very pleased to be here.
Thank you very much, George. Okay. Yeah, thanks. We have always perceived Writers' Union of Canada as something very big and kind of intimidating. Now it looks kind of open. It's opened up, and it's great. Thank you very much. In the letters we sent about this meeting, we indicated that the meeting wouldn't be very much structured. It's not going to be very much formal. It's going to be very kind of relaxed and informal type. So nobody sitting here, that's why. Before we start further, we like to tell a bit of our story, what we are doing, if you can bear with us. For that, I'll call upon Darshan Gill. He would give a bit of introduction to Punjabi Writers Forum, who's organizing this conference, and Surjit Kalsi, who would give short introduction to the Canadian Punjabi literature. So, can I call upon both of you, and then we'll start.
Dear friends, as most of you have gone through this pamphlet that we produced 2 or 3 months ago, I'm just going to read that part which tells about the Punjabi Writers Forum. Actually, the Punjabi Literary Association, all these writers who are associated today with Punjabi Literary Forum, they have been associating with the literary and cultural pursuits for the last 1.5 decades. So Punjabi Writers Forum is an organization of Punjabi writers living in Vancouver and the surrounding areas. These writers have been active in literary and cultural pursuits for the past 1.5 decades. The forum has been holding literary meetings regularly every month, and now it has been changed to every 3 weeks. Poems, short stories, plays, translations, criticism, book reviews, literary news, and other literary writings are read and discussed in these meetings. The Writers' Forum was created mainly to inspire creative writing in the Indo-Canadian community here. Several visiting Punjabi writers and writers from other languages have participated in the forum meetings from time to time. The Writers' Forum also organizes poetry readings, radio recitals, book release functions, and literary exhibitions. The forum members read poems in English poetry readings organized outside into the Indo-Canadian community. And the writers also of belonging to this form, including myself, Ajmer, Surjit Kalsi, have their poetry books out already in English. So that's what we have been doing for the last so many years, and that's what Punjabi Literary Forum stands for. Thank you very much.
Dear literary friends, I have spoken several times about the Punjabi literature, and some of you, maybe Betsy Ngola, George McWhirter, Nellie McClung, they are familiar with Punjabi literature here, but we have new friends this year. And for their information, maybe I'll give them some little background of the Punjabi literature and what's being written in Canada. Punjabi literature comes from the fertile land of Punjab. Punjab means five river, in northwestern province of India. The Punjabi language dates back to approximately 1,000 years before Christ, when the Vedas, the magnificent scriptures of Indian philosophy, were being created in the land of Punjab. Some historians believe that the Vedas were written in the Vedic Punjabi language, an old form of Sanskrit. Most, however, believe it to be the direct descendant of Sanskrit. In any case, the Punjabi language has its roots in Sanskrit, like other North Indian languages, such as Hindi, Bengali, etc. Why I'm giving this overview of Punjabi language? Because this is a very rich language, and it dates back more than 1,000 years. After the Vedas, we find no evidence of any Punjabi literature until the 8th century. The reason is obvious. For centuries, Punjab had to undergo so many political, economic, religious, and above all, cultural changes that it lost and found its originality time and time again. So we can roughly consider the 8th century to be the beginning of Punjabi literature. At that time, mystic poetry, mostly hymns written by nathas, yogis, and saints, appeared. At the same time, some parables, riddles, folk tales and folk songs by various unknown writers also appeared. In the 11th and 12th century, Baba Farid Shakarganj. Do we have Baba Farid? You might have seen his picture outside. Yeah. Baba Farid Shakarganj, the first Sufi poet, wrote couplets which are considered to be the first outstanding Punjabi poetry. Some of the best works of Punjabi literature were created by Sikh gurus in the 15th and the 16th centuries. Their poetry, collected in the Guru Granth Sahib, the holy scripture of the Sikhs, is mostly religious and mystic, but the high quality of its verse is characterized by rhyme, symbolism, aestheticism, and a large number of new and beautiful words used in a literary way for the first time. Above all, these works present fearless philosophy and ethics. During the following 3 centuries, Sufism, mysticism, and Romanticism were dominant in Punjabi poetry. This period saw the creation of such masterworks in Hashim Sassi, Bulle Shah's Kafiya, and Waz Shah's Heer. Apart from these, lyrical narrative poetry and ballads were also predominant. In the middle of the 19th century, the Mughal rule declined, and for a short period, Punjab was ruled by Maharaja Ranjit Singh's sixth regime, which in turn gave way to British domination. Under such changing political conditions, literary activities once again went underground. The struggle for independence began. At the beginning of the 20th century, the struggle grew stronger and affected the entire society. The struggle was so hard that the intelligentsia became introverted, and rather than publicly expressing their resentment, began to sublimate their feelings into mystic or romantic literature again. Pai Veer Singh is typical of this period. So is his mystic poetry. He also tried his hand at fiction and drama. Although he could not rid himself of traditional influences, he nevertheless introduced the short lyrical form of poetry into Punjabi literature. His contemporary, Professor Puran Singh, introduced blank verse into Punjabi poetry for the first time, and he depicted the beauty of the common man's hard life, peasants plowing, laborers working, and the busy hands of potters, etc. For this reason, these poets are generally considered to have been the pioneers of modern Punjabi literature. For Punjab, the 20th century has been an age of advancement in every respect. The country underwent vast changes and its people began to go abroad to explore new ways of life, to gain new experiences which were later reflected in their literature. During this period, Punjabi literature has ballooned. Almost every genre has seen growth. In 1936, along with the progressive movement in Indian literature, the Punjabi writers reflected specifically realistic values in their works. This was in consequence to the impact of Marxism, which influenced the thinking of writers to some extent. It, however, was in turn some overpowered by the basic romantic tendencies of Punjabi literature, and the movement soon dwindled into a romantic progressivism. Reason, realism, and romanticism became increasingly evident in Punjabi literature. The movement dominated the literary scene for more than 4 decades. During this period, Punjabi literature, specifically poetry, achieved great refinement both in form and substance. In 1947, India won its independence. Punjab experienced unbearable massacre, and Punjabi literature reflected the wailing sorrows of its people. Amrita Pritam's poem Valshah is an outstanding example. After independence, Punjabi literature went through a remarkable change in form as well as in substance. Shiv Kumar achieved fame as a lyrical and epic poet. Son Singh Misha, Harbhajan Singh, Jiftar, Tara Singh, etc. introduced highly intellectual elements into Punjabi poetry. They stood for realism and reason in literature. By 1960, Punjabi poetry had already achieved regional as well as national acclaim. By this time, a group of younger writers, led by Jasbir Singh Ahluwalia, had begun to experiment with both style and substance, declaring their movement to be the experimental movement. They were influenced by both English literature and Western and Indian mythology. However, this type of poetry has been challenged by the original focus of the revolutionary and new modern poetry being written by even younger poets. Pash, Amarjit Chandan, Sujit Patar, Amitoj, Pryamasar. And some of them, they were actually started their writing and they came to Canada, like Surinder Tanjal and some other poets. They came from the same stream. So during the last 2 decades, intellectuals and writers and writers, they started coming to Canada, and they brought with them their own style and writings, and they started writing here too. They continued actually writing here. Some of them they continued, and some of them they started here from their own experiences here. And for the last 14 or 15 years, they have been writing here poetry, short stories, drama, and only one writer is writing novels. And today, actually, this conference, they have actually put together all what has been written so far, and they actually 11 writers, they wrote papers on drama, poetry, short stories, and novel, and culture and literature, and Punjabi poetry and the mainstream poetry, and all those topics, just to see what we are doing and how far we have gone. But we are doing in our own community, and the people and the writers from the mainstream, they don't know what we are doing, and this is the first time when we are exchanging our literature with the mainstream writers. Though the efforts were made before too. We tried before just to exchange maybe in few poetry readings or maybe bilingual poetry readings, but those efforts were just isolated efforts. And this conference actually is showing that today's effort will continue if we have have, and especially George McWhorter's and Writers Union's message, it shows that we are going to have some kind of relation with the mainstream writers. In the connection with those efforts, I would like to mention first effort was made